What's up, guys? Welcome to the driving podcast. I'm in the car today. I'm gonna let Charlie take a rest for today, and go ahead and just pop on here to discuss what I want to talk about today. Today's topic, it's frequently brought up on the channel. You know, people say, first they'll say, I know nothing about weed. I know nothing about addiction because I wasn't addicted to things like meth or heroin or alcohol, and weed is not really addictive. I beg to differ. But anyway, for people who have battled addiction with harder drugs, I'm not saying that those drugs aren't definitely worse than something like weed. But, I mean, weed is still addictive, despite it not being as strong as something like meth or heroin. But, okay, what about people who have, conquered those drugs, conquered the addiction of the harder substances, and they're now just using weed as a safer alternative? And they say, well, I've experienced addiction with these drugs. I just smoke weed because it helps me get by day to day, and it's much more safer than the drugs that I was, doing previously. And part of me agrees, part of me understands that, because, of course, I'm not comparing weed to harder drugs. So if you have dealt with the addiction with those things, I would much rather you smoke some weed than snort some crack. They're definitely two different things. So it is a safer alternative. But first of all, I know nothing about. This is a kind of rant. First of all, I know nothing about heroin or meth addiction. This channel is about weed addiction. I really can't. I'm not authorized. I have experience to speak on harder drugs, to say what you should do after that, because you are dealing with something like a tougher situation. So it's not really for me to speak on these things, but I don't understand why people jump in comments and say, well, I was on so-and-so. I'm not talking, if you were on meth, I really can't speak on that because I don't know about meth. Now, I do know about, AA or alcoholics. Typically, if you have, struggled with alcohol in AA meetings, I haven't been to an AA meeting, but I've, seen them or heard about them. From what I've heard, I don't think they would agree with you smoking weed. Most AA alcoholics are going to say, okay, well, you can smoke a little weed because, it's better than alcohol. No, they're going to say you're probably going to lead back into some type of addiction. If not, go back to the same thing you were on originally. So, first off, I don't know if it's different with, Drug Anonymous, NA meetings. I don't know if it's different with narcotics, but I'm probably going to say your sponsor would say you probably shouldn't smoke weed either. Or it's probably not safe to even go down that route. So I'm not going to fully say that, okay, I understand that. I would think a professional might tell you shouldn't smoke weed. But that's beside the point. But if you are using weed as a safer alternative, nothing's wrong with that. But are you using it the same amount you were using the previous drugs? If I quit meth and I'm doing meth every day and I go to rehab and I kick that addiction and then I start smoking weed every day, I still have an addiction. It's just not to narcotics. So, I guess we can make it sound better in our head to say, well, I'm still, they may say weed is not really even addictive, but it is. I'm addicted, but it's not to a narcotic, so, it's not as bad. Now, if you smoke weed from time to time, I don't think that's a big deal. I've stated this channel is not about people. I'm not condemning anybody who smokes weed. If you just smoke weed every now and then, every once in a while, just, like you have a drink every month or so, or every other week, not a big deal. But when you tend to use it day to day and feel like you need it to get by and you need it to survive during the day, you have picked up probably an unhealthy relationship with weed, and you're using it in an addictive form. So if you have an experience with narcotics or alcohol, we're free to do what we want, how we want. But I'm gonna say that still doesn't justify people who go through weed addiction, and that perhaps could not be a safe alternative if you have a history of addiction. Some people also say that, I know one comment this week, it said, he battled with meth or heroin, and weed is not addictive. I have a lot of living and learning to do. I don't know what the fuck that means. Like, what living do I have? So I would like to talk to him, explain that comment to me. What living do I have to do? I'm in my late 30s. I have 3 children, a wife. I'm living. I'm experiencing life. I'm gaining wisdom. I don't think I got to do some heroin to know if I had a problem with weed addiction. Like, I didn't understand that comment. I don't know what living got to do, but in previous videos I've said people who have had addictions, have issues or addictions with narcotics or alcohol, they tend to kind of stick their nose up at people who say they have a weed addiction. They're like, oh, weed, that's not really a big deal, which I get it and I don't get it. I compare it to 2 women going through abuse in their marriage, and one woman saying, she was physically abused, and one saying she was emotionally abused, and then the woman who's been beat for years say, girl, he just talking down on you. Try like getting black eyes. That's not a big deal. Is that really abuse? Because he's just talking down to you. I feel like that's the same as people who shit on people who smoke weed and say that's not really an addiction. Obviously it is, because people have a hard time quitting. We are addicted to anything in life. We will find things to become addicted to, whether it's video games, porn, gambling. None of these things are physically addictive, so that's not the main qualifier if something is addictive, whether it's physically addictive. They'll say, well, it's not physically, it's mentally addictive. Again, if your mind's addicted, that's your body, that's physical. So I think that can be debated as well. But if you, again, have an issue, have had a past with narcotics, and you're using weed now, part of me will say, if you have to fall into some cycle of addiction or use something, definitely use weed over narcotics. But that's not we can't do that and say, well, I was addicted to like meth, now I do weed. Weed is not addictive. If you're using it in the same form as you use narcotics, it's still addictive. And you can't, if you don't smoke weed and you have had a history with narcotics, you can't tell somebody who has a weed addiction issue that that's not real addiction. Like, I ain't got to do crack, I ain't got to do meth to be addicted to something. Again, I find it weird that nobody throws a debate. If this was a channel about porn addiction or gambling, would they still say, well, gambling is not really addictive because it's not physically addictive, whatever that means. But yeah, so if you're watching this and you are somebody who have, struggled with actual addiction with narcotics, and you're using weed now as an alternative, do you use it the same amount? Do you use it can't see me. Do you use it the same amount as you did when you were smoking the narcotics or snorting, whatever you choose to do? Or, do you just use it from time to time? Is it really a big deal? But yeah, so that was my sort of just really rant for today. And I would like you guys to comment below. Let me know what you feel, how you think about what I've said. Until next time, guys, please like, subscribe, share. Most importantly, comment below. And remember, we are all in this together. Peace.
Beat the weed, kill the scene, break the mold, say no more green, no more haze, cloudy days, weed addiction. People say it's not real, it's so fake. If you are on this journey, block the hate, they're so corny. Only you know where it began, where it starts and where it ends. Take control of your mind, control your sleep, control your time. Be who you are, meant to be, authentic self, strong and free. Weed addiction 101, weed addiction 101. Don't pass the blunt to me, my son. Don't pass the blunt to me, my son. Kill the scene, break the mold, say no more green, no more haze, cloudy days, weed addiction. People say it's not real, it's so fake. If you are on this journey, block the hate, they're so corny. Only you know where it began, where it starts and where it ends. Take control of your mind, control your sleep, control your time. Be who you are, meant to be, authentic self, strong and free. Weed addiction 101, weed addiction 101. Don't pass the blunt to me, my son. Son.